So that sounds like a good market for solar panel manufacturers, but getting them, the products that is, maybe getting a little more expensive than they used to be. The market for panels has been beset by oversupply in recent years, but new research by Bloomberg's New Energy Finance found that there could be a shortage. So I spoke to solar analyst Jenny Chase, who compiled the research, and asked her, is it really a reversal?
So there has been an oversupply for the last couple of years, but that's definitely easing now. And we're expecting that in the second half of this year, there could even be a mild undersupply of panels. Certainly prices will be around the world. It's not that prices can rise dramatically, because if they do that, the people will stop building solar projects, at least until they drop again. But there's definitely profits being made by solar manufacturers, which has not been the case for the last couple of years by and large.
Now, I mean, that goes against what we've heard press, as you said, there has been an oversupply. What was the inflection point? What happened?
So I think it hasn't been a sudden inflection point. Probably the worst year was actually 2012 and the first half of 2013. Things have actually been getting stronger all through the second half of 2013 and even now. And I think the inflection point really is the fact that the second half of 2014 is expected to be really strong. China is planning to build about at least 12 gigawatts of photovoltaics this year, and it only built 3 gigawatts, just over 3 gigawatts in the first half of this year, so it's really going to have to speed up. And all the indications from China are it's going to do that, and it's going to really start buying modules and putting them on roofs and on the ground in the second half of this year, which could easily lead to higher prices for everybody.
There's been two major trade disputes between solar panel and components versus specific parts of the world. I'm focusing on China and Europe, China and the U.S. Walk us through very quickly how the European agreement with China, how that might have had an impact, and then we'll talk a little bit about the relationship now between the U.S. and China as that's still ongoing.
So the European case has been settled somewhat uneasily in an undertaking. What happened was that the Chinese Ministry of Commerce and the European Commission agreed that all Chinese manufacturers who signed up to this could still sell into Europe without import tariffs being imposed, provided they had a minimum price. And this minimum price will be adjusted quarterly. There are still a lot of political discussions over exactly how this price gets adjusted, but basically it has had very little effect, because the minimum import price is approximately what the companies would have been selling for anyway. At the same time, China also conceded the same undertaking on polysilicon imports from Europe. China still imports silicon from a major German company, and again, an agreement was reached whereupon there was a minimum price that would not hurt Chinese suppliers badly, and but there would be no import tariffs on that company.
Jenny, in your research, you mentioned that you're suggesting that there is a perhaps undersupply. What does next year look like? What does the year after look like? Is there any new production coming online that might perhaps jeopardize that?
There's certainly new production coming online. And the other thing I would say is that there's not an oversupply of there's not an undersupply of module manufacturing capacity. There are loads of cell and module factories. There's actually a potential undersupply of the raw material silicon, because it takes 2 or 3 years to build a silicon factory. Nonetheless, there are a number of silicon factories being brought online next year, and my expectation is that demand and supply will stay more or less in balance and prices ease gently in line with the experience curve for the next couple of years.
We talk a lot about...
It's not going to be a serious undersupply.
Yeah, we talk a lot about climate change on the show, and I want to ask you, is solar, an argument's been made that solar wasn't cheap enough to basically replace a lot of the fossil fuels that we had generally used in the past. Has the price come down enough to where it is now a viable option to use for countries around the world trying to tackle climate change?
Yes, it has. In fact, in countries with high power prices and even moderate insulation, quite a lot of them are going to start looking at taxing production of solar power in the next few years. Spain's already seriously considered it. Germany's already considered it. Germany's not sunny, but it does pay a lot. People do pay a lot for power in Germany, so it's getting to the point where it's worth putting solar panels on your house just to save electricity.
Jenny Chase, thank you. Lead solar analyst for Bloomberg New Energy Finance.